A beginner's guide to taming your inner critic. What if the most constant voice in your life, the one that whispers you're not enough, that you failed before you've even begun, is not a flaw in your design, but a forgotten key to your own liberation? This is not a guide to winning a war inside your mind. The true battle was declared by a misunderstanding. The voice you call your inner critic is not an invader. It is a relic, a loyal guardian from an older, shadowed version of yourself, left standing at a gate that no longer exists, dutifully sounding an alarm for dangers that have long since passed. It speaks in the tongue of a previous age, a dialect of fear and contraction, and we have mistaken its weathered map of the old world for a verdict on who we are now. To know thyself, Temet Nosce, is to embark on the most sacred archaeology. It is to gently brush the dust from these ancient inner sentinels, not to dismantle them, but to hear the story etched into their armor. That story is always one of protection. Every harsh judgment, every "you can't," every deflating "who do you think you are," was once a spell cast to keep a younger, more vulnerable you safe from a perceived dragon, the dragon of rejection, of abandonment, of being seen and found wanting. The critic is not your enemy. It is a ghost of your past courage, a fossilized form of love that learned to express itself through severity because in some forgotten winter of your soul, kindness felt too soft a shield. So we begin not with techniques of silencing, but with ceremonies of listening. We begin by turning toward the static, not to amplify it, but to hear the distant, distorted station it is trying to tune into. This journey is an act of spiritual reconciliation. It is the reintegration of a lost fragment of your own consciousness that has been haunting the halls of your mind, believing it is still on duty. The path to taming is the path to remembering. You are not here to destroy a part of yourself. You are here to welcome a lonely, weary soldier home from a war that ended years ago, and to offer it a new, more honorable post in the kingdom of your becoming. Part 1. The Misguided Guardian, Recognizing the Relic. Imagine for a moment that your psyche is not a blank slate, but a layered city. You live in the bright, bustling streets of the present, making choices, dreaming dreams, navigating the now. But beneath this modern metropolis lie deep strata, the archaeological layers of every age you have ever been. In the oldest districts, built in the time of your earliest wounds and first fears, stand the original guardians. They were sculpted by necessity. When you felt small, one learned to be loud. When you felt unsafe, one learned to be harsh. When love felt conditional, one learned to preemptively punish you, hoping to correct you before the world could reject you. This is the inner critic's birthplace, not in malice, but in a desperate, archaic love. This guardian was an ingenious adaptation. Its strategy was simple. By criticizing you internally, it aimed to shrink your presence, to keep your ambitions modest, your profile low, and thus avoid the perceived predators of shame, failure, or exposure. It used the only tools it had, the words it had heard, the tones it had felt, and forged them into a constant internal commentary. The problem is that cities evolve. The wild frontiers those walls were built to withstand have receded. The dragons have turned out to be shadows. But the guardian, dutiful to its core, never received the missive from headquarters that the war is over. It stands at its post, seeing every new opportunity as a potential breach, every dream as a reckless vulnerability, and it sounds the same old alarm with relentless, anachronistic fervor. We mistake this for our own voice because it has been with us so long. Its commentary feels like the very fabric of our thinking, but it is not the architect of the city. It is a single anxious guard from a forgotten quarter, convinced the entire metropolis is still under siege. Its warnings are not truths about your present capability, but echoes of past protective strategies. When it says you'll fail, it is translating an old childlike fear of helplessness. When it hisses, they'll laugh, it is replaying an ancient tape of social survival. The first step in taming is this fundamental re-seeing, to look at the critic and instead of seeing a monster, recognize a museum piece. It is a testament to how hard a younger you fought to survive, now preserved in the amber of your subconscious, still trying to do its job. This recognition is the first act of sacred empathy towards yourself. It moves the work from a civil war to a diplomatic mission. You are not trying to assassinate a part of your soul. You are initiating a dialogue with a legacy system. The energy you would spend fighting it, the shame of having it, the frustration at its persistence, can now be redirected towards understanding it. For when you understand the original protective intent, the criticism begins to lose its personal sting. It becomes a signpost, not to your inadequacy, but to your history. It points directly to those tender, buried places within you that still, on some level, feel they need an ancient guard. And in that pointing, it reveals exactly where your true work of healing and integration awaits. Part 2. The Art of Sacred Identification, Naming the Ghost. The moment you recognize the critic as a separate entity from your core self, a profound shift occurs. The monologue becomes a dialogue. The haunting becomes a meeting. But to engage, you must first know who or what you are addressing. You cannot converse with a fog. In the esoteric traditions, to name a thing is to gain a degree of sovereignty over it, not to control it, but to define its nature, to draw a circle around its influence and say, this is you and that is me. We do not name to imprison, but to clarify. So we begin the gentle art of identification, not with analysis, but with a kind of intuitive anthropology of your own inner world. Think of this not as a clinical diagnosis, but as a poet or a storyteller might approach a mysterious character who has wandered into their tale. Listen to the tone, the texture, the rhythm of the criticism. Does it snarl with the rasp of a drill sergeant, all sharp edges and impossible standards? Does it sigh with the disappointed weariness of a perfectionist tutor, forever pointing out the one flawed brushstroke on an otherwise masterpiece? Or does it fret with the anxious, clutching worry of a nervous caretaker, constantly forecasting disaster to keep you safely small? Each archetype carries a distinct energy and a specific historical purpose. Your task is to sit quietly after an episode of criticism and ask not what did it say, but who was speaking. Allow a name to arise from this feeling. It might be a formal title, like the Overseer. It might be a more personal, almost humorous label, like Ms. Never Good Enough or the Doomsday Prophet. The name is not an insult, it is a key. It externalizes the voice. When you think the Doomsday Prophet is forecasting failure again, you have created psychic space. You have subtly reminded yourself that you are the one hearing the prophecy, not the prophecy itself. You are the spacious sky, and the critic is just weather passing through. This naming ritual is a foundational act of self-knowledge, Temet Nosce, for it begins the process of mapping the inhabitants of your own consciousness. With a name, you can begin to observe its habits with detached curiosity, like a naturalist studying a unique creature. You start to see its patterns, when it emerges most strongly, often during moments of risk, creativity, or rest, what its triggers are, a perceived threat to safety, esteem, or control, and what its favorite repetitive scripts are. This observation is done without judgment. You are not trying to shoo the creature away. You are learning its territory, to understand its role in the ecosystem of your mind. You may discover, for instance, that your drill sergeant only mobilizes when you are about to step into a visible leadership role, revealing that its core programming is to protect you from the vulnerability of being seen in authority, perhaps stemming from a time when standing out led to painful correction. This phase of identification is where the spiritual practice deepens. It is an invitation to witness a fragment of your own soul that has been operating autonomously, trapped in a loop of time. In holding it in the light of your present awareness, you are performing a quiet act of retrieval. You are saying to this lost part, I see you. I acknowledge your presence. I feel the weight of the duty you have carried for so long. This acknowledgement alone can soften the critic's edges.
Part 3. Decoding the Cipher. Translating Fear's Ancient Language. Once you have met and named your inner guardian, you stand at the threshold of its fortress. The harsh words, the biting tone, the relentless critique, these are not the structure itself, but the formidable gates. To pass through, you must learn the password, which is always a translation. The critic speaks in the crude, blunt language of fear, but every fear contains a hidden, softer plea. Your work now is to become a cryptographer of your own soul, to listen past the surface alarm and hear the whispered message beneath. The critic does not say what it means. It barks a warning to mask a vulnerability. When it snarls, "You're going to fail," its raw, untranslated meaning is often, "I am terrified of the helplessness and shame that failure might bring." One is a prophecy of doom, the other is a confession of a tender spot. This decoding is an alchemical process. It turns the lead of condemnation into the gold of self-understanding. Begin with the simple, powerful practice of the yes-but inquiry. When the named critic issues its decree, for example, the perfectionist tutor sighs and says, "This work is mediocre at best," you pause. You breathe into the space between the thought and your reaction. Then you gently ask, "And if that were true, what is it really afraid of?" You follow the chain down. If this is mediocre, then people might dismiss it. And if people dismiss it, then they might dismiss me. And if they dismiss me, then I will be alone and unworthy. The core fear, buried under layers of criticism, is almost universally a primal one: abandonment, unworthiness, annihilation, or the loss of love. Unearthing this core fear is not an admission of its truth, but an act of profound location. You are not agreeing with the critic, you are discovering the wounded coordinates from which it is broadcasting. This is where the spiritual lens becomes vital. In many wisdom traditions, fear is seen as energy that has forgotten its connection to source, contracting around a story of separation. Your critic's fear is a frozen story, a snapshot of a moment in time when you felt separate from safety, love, or your own power. By decoding its message, you are warming that frozen story with the light of your present awareness. You are showing the frightened part that the story is over, even if it continues to play on a loop in a sealed chamber of your psyche. As you practice this translation, something subtle and significant shifts. The criticism begins to lose its monolithic factual quality. It starts to be seen for what it is, an outdated strategy. The voice shouting, "Don't try," is revealed to be a child's hand gripping yours too tightly at the edge of a pool it once fell into. The anger in the tone is the flare of a desperate love. This realization disarms you. It's difficult to rage against a voice when you understand it is, in its twisted way, a plea for safety. Your relationship changes from one of resistance to one of compassionate inquiry. Each critical thought becomes an invitation not to agree or fight, but to dig, to ask, where does it hurt? What old wound is throbbing now? The path to taming is paved with these questions, not with answers. This stage is the heart of inner reconciliation. You are performing a psychic archaeology, dusting off ancient tablets and deciphering their runes, not as commandments for today, but as historical records of survival. You are teaching your conscious mind to speak the deeper, truer language of your subconscious. In doing so, you are building a bridge between the modern city of your present self and the ancient district where the guardian stands watch. This bridge is made of understanding, and across it, a new kind of communication can finally begin. The energy once spent in cringing or arguing with the critic is now freed to hold the fear it was masking, and in that holding, the first real whispers of healing can be heard.
Part 4. The Ritual of Engagement, the Conversation that Heals. Understanding the critic's origin and decoding its fears prepares the ground, but the true transformation occurs in the sacred space of direct engagement. This is not a negotiation from a place of weakness, but a sovereign address from the throne of your present adult consciousness. Imagine you are the wise ruler of a vast and varied kingdom, and a provincial governor from a distant, troubled territory has arrived, shouting frantic warnings based on old maps. You would not shout back, nor would you blindly obey. You would listen, acknowledge the concern, and then calmly clarify the new reality. This is the ritual: to thank, to reassure, and to redirect. Begin by creating a moment of intentional internal silence. When the named critic speaks, pause. Feel your feet on the ground, your breath in your body. Remember who you are now, not the child of the past the critic remembers, but the capable, conscious being of the present. Then direct your inner voice toward the critic with deliberate kindness. Speak to it as you would to a loyal but misinformed friend. The formula is simple, yet profoundly powerful. Thank you. I hear you. I've got this. For example, when the nervous caretaker frets, "Don't take that risk, you'll ruin everything," your response could be, "Thank you for trying to protect me from chaos and ruin. I hear that you're scared. I am an adult now, and I can handle uncertainty. I've got this." This is not empty affirmation. It is a ceremonial transfer of authority. The thank you validates the protective intent, honoring the energy and history of this inner part. The I hear you provides the acknowledgement it has desperately sought. Often the critic amplifies its volume precisely because it feels ignored. The "I've got this" is the crucial redirection. It is you, the conscious self, reclaiming the helm. You are informing the ancient guardian that its emergency protocols are no longer required, that a wiser, more present intelligence is now in command. This repeated ritual rewires the relationship, teaching the subconscious that it can stand down. Over time, this practice builds a new neural pathway of response. The critic's alarm, instead of triggering a cascade of anxiety and self-doubt, now triggers a sequence of compassionate internal leadership. The energy that was bound up in the critic, the energy of hypervigilance, of intense scrutiny, of fierce protection, does not vanish. This is a crucial spiritual insight. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Through this ritual of engagement, you are not dismantling the guardian, you are promoting it. You are giving it a new, more honorable duty consistent with the peace and prosperity of your current kingdom. What might this new duty be? The sharp eye of the perfectionist can be redirected to become your quality of mindful attention, your appreciation for detail in art or nature. The cautious forecasting of the doomsday prophet can become your gift for prudent planning and risk assessment. The drill sergeant's demand for discipline can be transmuted into the steadfast fuel for your daily practices and commitments. The guardian's strength remains, but its target shifts from restraining you to serving the highest version of you. It moves from being a gatekeeper of your past limitations to a sentinel for your present integrity. This is the alchemical completion of taming. The base metal of fear-based criticism is transmuted into the gold of conscious, empowered discernment. This ongoing dialogue is the living practice of Temet Nosce. It is the daily, moment-to-moment knowing thyself through interaction with your own inner pantheon. It ends the civil war and establishes a cohesive inner council. The critic, once a tyrannical usurper, becomes an integrated advisor whose warnings are now heard as data, not divine truth, and whose power is harnessed for creation rather than contraction. You achieve not a silent mind, but a harmonized one, where every part has a voice, but you hold the gavel. The chaos of internal conflict settles into the creative tension of a diversified, wise, and fully staffed inner world.
Part 5. The Alchemy of Presence, from Critic to Co-Creator. The journey does not end with a pacified inner voice. It flowers when that once disruptive energy is seamlessly woven into the fabric of your being, becoming a source of discernment and creative power. This is the stage of integration, where the tamed critic ceases to be a separate entity you manage and instead becomes a subtle, sophisticated function of your wholeness. Imagine a master musician. The instrument does not play itself. It requires the musician's conscious intent, touch, and feeling. Yet the musician is not at war with the instrument's strings or its resonant body. They have a relationship, a dialogue of pressure, vibration, and response. Your inner critic, now understood and redirected, becomes like that instrument, a responsive medium through which the music of your authentic self can be played. This integration manifests as a new quality of inner atmosphere, a quiet confidence that is not the absence of doubt, but the presence of a larger container that can hold doubt without being defined by it. When an old critical thought arises, it no longer spirals into a narrative. It is perceived as a flicker in the field of awareness, a data point. You might feel the familiar pang, but instead of a voice shouting, "See, you're failing," there is a more spacious recognition. Ah, the old fear of inadequacy is present. This is the essence of witnessing consciousness, a cornerstone of mystical traditions. You are not the thought, you are the awareness in which the thought appears. The critic's chatter becomes like weather on the surface of a deep, still lake. It may ripple the surface, but the depths remain undisturbed and clear. From this place of inner stillness and integration, your relationship with the external world transforms. Because you are no longer embroiled in an internal civil war, you have access to a reservoir of energy previously spent on self-monitoring and defense. This energy becomes available for creation, for connection, for genuine expression. Projects that were once paralyzed by the critic's preview of judgment can now be approached with curiosity. Relationships feel lighter because you are not constantly projecting your inner judge onto others, fearing their criticism because you have made peace with your own. You begin to operate from a principle of expression, not impression. You are less concerned with how you are perceived and more aligned with what you feel called to bring into being. This is where the spiritual promise of Temet Nosce is realized. Knowing thyself is the prerequisite for truly becoming thyself. The integrated self, having reclaimed all its fragmented parts, gains a kind of coherence and magnetic integrity. In esoteric terms, you are aligning your conscious will with the deeper will of your soul, removing the internal static that obscured the signal. The critic, once a blocker of that signal by broadcasting fear, now becomes a tuner, helping you identify frequencies of inauthenticity or misalignment. Its function shifts from stop to check this. Its power of analysis, now in service to your wholeness, helps you refine your actions and choices, not from fear, but from a desire for elegant alignment. Finally, this integration completes a sacred cycle. You began by identifying a relic from your past, a guardian of old wounds. You engaged it, decoded its language, and through ritual transformed its role. Now it stands not as a wall against the world, but as a bridge between your deep self and your lived experience. The inner critic, fully integrated, becomes your compassionate edge, the part of you that knows your history, honors your sensitivity, and yet refuses to let those old stories limit your future horizon. It becomes the wise elder within, not the punishing parent. It offers the lessons of the past without the pain of the past. In this state, you are no longer taming your inner critic. You are collaborating with a refined aspect of your own innate intelligence. The war is over. The council is in session, and you, the sovereign of your own consciousness, are finally free to create from a place of profound and unshakable inner peace. Conclusion: the unified field of self. So here we stand, at the end of this beginning. We began by perceiving a tyrant in our minds, a voice that seemed to narrate our unworthiness with cruel precision. We end by recognizing an old guardian, a relic of love forged in fear, now welcomed home and given a new purpose. This is the ultimate revelation of Temet Nosce. There is no part of you that is not you. Every fragment of your consciousness, no matter how harsh or discordant it seems, is a shard of your own soul's history, crying out for reconciliation. The path to power was never through battle, but through reunion. The peace you seek is not the silence of a vacant mind, but the harmonious symphony of a fully integrated self. This work is not a one-time fix, but a living practice, a gentle leaning into awareness. Some days, the old voice will roar with forgotten strength, and your job is simply to remember the name, to offer the thanks, to reaffirm the boundary of your present sovereignty. Other days, you will move through the world with such quiet alignment that you'll wonder where the critic ever resided. Both days are part of the dance. The goal is not perfection, but relationship. You are cultivating a conscious friendship with every corner of your being, thereby transforming your inner world from a haunted house into a hallowed sanctuary. From this sanctuary, your life becomes your true creative act. No longer draining your vital energy into internal arguments, you free that currency to invest in the world you wish to see. Your dreams are no longer prefaced with, "But what if I fail?" but launched with, "Let's see what wants to emerge." Your relationships are cleansed of the old filter of judgment, allowing for cleaner, truer connection. You walk through the world not as a problem to be solved, but as a presence to be expressed. This is the practical magic of self-knowledge. It is the most profound form of alchemy, where the lead of self-doubt is consistently, patiently transformed into the gold of authentic expression. Now the invitation extends beyond this moment. The real ritual begins when the video ends. Take this understanding into the quiet of your own mind. The next time that familiar critical edge appears, pause, breathe, ask the sacred questions. Who is speaking? What is it truly afraid of? Then engage with the kindness you would offer a lost part of yourself returning home. Name it, thank it, and reclaim your authority. This simple, repeated act is how you build the new world within. It is how you stop being haunted by your history and start being guided by your wholeness. And so, as we return from these inner depths to the gentle light of this shared moment, remember this: the greatest journey you will ever undertake begins not with a step, but with a question turned inward. You are not just a viewer seeking knowledge. You are a sovereign remembering your domain. If this exploration has resonated with you, if it has sparked a recognition within your own vast inner landscape, then you become part of this living dialogue of awakening. Please help our channel grow and spread this message of sacred self-reclamation by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so we may continue this pilgrimage together into further hidden territories of being. Let the conversation continue below. Drop a comment with the name of your inner guardian, or whisper to us what you wish to explore next. For in sharing our maps, we illuminate the path for all. Thank you for watching.